Long story short, during Bob Backlund's run for Congress, I was his top gopher. I was his right-hand man. I was his top assistant. I wasn't one of his advisors. I was more of a rising generation advisor. I was only 18, 19 years old, so I didn't have a whole lot of responsibilities that mattered in the long run. But I was around a lot, and I saw people talk to him, and if it was somebody important or somebody maybe influential or somebody that I felt that could be beneficial to the campaign, I would interject myself and I would introduce myself and I would, kind of make contact. And I was at a party and I saw a TV show called The Warehouse. It was a public access TV show that went to all of Greater Hartford on Cox Cable. So every TV cable customer that had Cox Cable in the Greater Hartford area got this particular program. And that was the district that Bob was running in. So I thought that would be beneficial. The producer and star of that show was named Brian Lyster. He was from Rocky Hill, Connecticut. And he broadcasted out of Rocky Hill, Connecticut. And I got in contact with him to have Bob come on that show. And Bob blew him off. And I was like, I got to get a replacement for this guy. He's going to be pissed at me. So I got him Jason Knight, who's a former ECW television champion who lives in Waterbury. I got him on the show that night that Bob was supposed to be on. And it was a last minute thing, but it worked out. And Brian was happy and Jason was happy and everyone was happy. And long story short, after the campaign, Brian offered me a guest host spot on The Warehouse. And it worked out. I was yelling and screaming and doing my backyard wrestling character. And people were really getting pissed and really getting into it, And I think it kind of overwhelmed Brian Lyster for a minute because he's kind of used to just fucking off on public access. But I brought, some order to the show and kind of made it a little edgier and a little cooler and a little bit more hipper. Because my thing was 20% of this audience is just going to observe and really dig what we're doing. Everybody else is going to get pissed, annoyed, or just want to fuck off on the TV, on the telephone lines when they call up. So I was catering to those 20%, and and then later, a couple weeks after that, I got offered a position with Jason Knight's wrestling company, Assault Championship Wrestling, to do a manager spot on his show. Nothing crazy. I didn't get paid. It was just, just doing like a mock, just a basic manager spot on his show. I'd been doing some gophering for him for quite some time. And I got to do that while I was doing The Warehouse. And it got more and more, the heat got heavy, and there was a news story done about us. And it was kind of a trash piece that kind of, it was kind of a hit piece. They really, made us look bad. But we thought it was awesome because we were like, okay, we just got on the news. Now tonight, when we go live at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, there's going to be a lot of people watching us. So we're going to do something fun. So I got my comedy troupe together and got all my comedy buddies together. And we did like a mock boy band interview where at the end, me and one of the other co-hosts beat up the whole boy band, right? And everybody was in on it, but except for the audience. So at the end of the segment, there was a bunch of cops waiting for us out in the parking lot because they thought we were actually beating up a boy band. And it was this big story, and that caught the attention of Ed Peruta from Rocky Hill, who is a known sue-happy, individual. He sues everybody. If he doesn't get his way, he sues everybody. And at one point in time, he didn't get his way on this particular public access channel. And he sued them for a bunch of money because like you'll see in the news story if you Google that or look it up on YouTube. You know, JP Ward on the 6 o'clock news. JP Ward beats up a boy band. JP Ward in Assault Championship Wrestling. JP Ward and the Ozone Comedy Troupe. These are all things you can Google and look up. He sued the public access station and he got a bunch of money and he formed his own, you know, TV network. And he would buy infomercial spots and he would put on shows. Like he'd put on a news show or he would sell cars or he would, you know, he would do all these things, but he would do it from his own network. And a lot of it was live. So after the boy band incident, he, you know, was interested in us and came on our show one time, even though he was barred from the building. He came on our show and publicly offered us a job on his network. So we went from going to 6 towns in the greater Hartford area to going to all of southwestern New England. And we did our same thing. And he just said, hey, you know, you can come on and do comedy bits. You can, you know, talk shit about, you know, Circuit City and burn, you know, the employee uniform if you want. You can, you know, do your wrestling bits. You can do, you know, the staged, you know, little bits that you were doing. You could do your talk show. You could do, you know, all the stuff that we had been doing. Basically everything that they do on the internet now in 2025. We were doing that back in 2002. And it wasn't really explained why. But on the last show, Brian didn't show up to work, or what would be the last show, Brian Lyster didn't show up to work. And so I had a replacement co-host, this guy named Justin, who ran our board. He was the co-host for that day. And about 3 minutes into it, the phone rings for the hotline, and it's Brian, and he's like talking shit. He's like mocking us. So like, and we're like, Brian, what are you doing? Like, this is your show. Like, why are you being a cunt? And, you know, he basically just said that we were fired and, you know, the show wasn't going to continue and we were to leave the studio after the show was over and never come back. And I snapped. Like I ripped him a new asshole right on TV. And, we were doing a game show that night, like a 420 trivia kind of stoner game show. And, yeah, Ed Peruta, he called in the hit. He fired us. And we were doing exactly everything that people are doing on the internet 20 years later. And he made a mistake. He fucked up. And my life was never the same. And I just had to watch the internet take over and do things that I was doing for free on public access. You know, back in the early 2000s, I have to watch the internet do what I was doing and make money, and I never made a dime. So Ed Peruta and Brian Lyster can rot in hell, and I'm going to be pissing on their graves when they die. You can be sure of that. And that was when I snapped. You know, 20 years, 20-year jump on the internet, on the content creating business on the internet, 20-year jump, and they fired me after 4 episodes. Smooth.